Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. New Criminal Injuries Compensation Board appointed. Cabinet approves increased resources for the DPP and the judiciary. And an outreach center commissioned at Covine Road. Thank you for joining us. Justice Minister the Honourable Chrislyn Moore presented instruments of appointment to members of the new Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. Speaking at the ceremony, the minister noted the importance of the board as ensuring compensation to victims of criminal activities.
6 persons have been appointed as new members of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. The members received their instruments of appointment on Friday from Minister of Justice Chrislyn Moore. Established in 2006, the board seeks to provide a simple, effective, equitable and humane means whereby a victim of crime or violence can obtain compensation for injuries suffered. Minister Moore, in welcoming the board, says the appointment seeks to address the imbalances in the justice system.
Redress the imbalance in the system that victims may feel by providing an avenue for which they can be compensated for criminal acts perpetrated against them and against their relatives. In that regard, it is of utmost importance that this board, as with all other boards, comply with all rules and regulations surrounding their appointment and surrounding the operations of state boards in general.
Newly appointed board member, Attorney at Law Wayne Sturge, explains the purpose of the board in providing some form of comfort in places where administration of justice could not be done.
Compensation is hardly ever awarded in the criminal justice system, although there are provisions in the Criminal Procedure Act for up to $50,000 to be paid. So for a number of reasons, there's no monetary compensation to assist with medical expenses and getting back on their feet and so on, psychological trauma and so on and so on. So this is an avenue to provide some sort of compensation to aid in many different ways victims who, for whatever reason, feel they did not get justice.
Minister Moore says the board will operate in accordance to the Criminal Injuries Compensation Act.
This organization was set up or has been set up by statute, and its remit has to do with assessing compensation that may be that persons may be entitled to, they being victims of crime or they being relatives of persons who are victims of crime. So that the remit of the board is to consider these applications and to, using the word loosely, adjudicate upon them, having regard to the parameters set out in their act.
The new board includes Attorney Alvin Pascal, Trudy Thomas from the Ministry of People and Social Development, as well as psychiatrist Krishna Maraj. Kimberly Ram-Kalawan, News 4.
In related news, Cabinet has approved provisions to assist in the smooth and efficient administration of justice. This was revealed by Attorney General the Honourable Anand Ramlogan at the post-Cabinet news briefing.
Cabinet has approved an increase in staffing at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and an increase in funding for the judiciary to treat with amendments to the Administration of Justice Act. According to the Attorney General, the specific aim of the approvals is to facilitate the abolition of preliminary inquiries. AG Ramlogan says there is now a new organizational structure for the Office of the DPP, which has never been revised since its establishment in 1976. He says there will be an increase in staff from 30 to 237 legal and civil posts with effect from June 1st, 2013.
The structure of the Office of the DPP was in need of change, and urgent needed that. After consultation with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, I'm pleased to announce today that the staff establishment of the Criminal Law Department of the Ministry of the Attorney General will now be formalized and comprise an additional 100 legal offices and 107 civil offices in terms of support staff. There will remain one DPP, of course. Deputy DPP will increase from 2 to 3. Assistant DPP will increase from 3 to 6. And of course, the consequential changes in the staffing requirements.
The Attorney General says the infrastructural costs to facilitate this latest development will amount to just over $16 million, while staffing costs is an estimated $31.6 million. The judiciary, on the other hand, will receive additional funding of $13.5 million to treat with its infrastructural expansion and operational needs. This follows the increase in staff in numbers last year by the Cabinet.
Courtroom and office spaces, information technology, the transcription services and so on to house this new staff has been looked at, and we will be making changes with this money to the Port of Spain Supreme Court, the St. George West Magistrates Court, the Tanapuna Magistrates Court, the San Fernando Magistrates Court, the Tobago Supreme Court, and the Industrial Court in San Fernando.
The Attorney General went on to detail the expenditure for the judiciary.
The breakdown of the costs: courtroom and office space, $7.7 million; ICT, $3.970 million; court transcriptionists, $500,000; secure courier service, that's $75,000 for 24 months, $1.8 million. The provision of these additional funds will have to be met by the Ministry of Finance, and of course I'll be pressing the Minister of Finance to give this the urgency and priority it deserves, given the expected impact it will have on improving the criminal justice system.
These latest approvals, coupled with the previous Cabinet approvals and the passing of the relevant legislation, will see the criminal justice system in Trinidad and Tobago more efficient and all-encompassing. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
When we come back, Trinidad and Tobago reserves doing well despite a challenging global economic environment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Trinidad and Tobago's reserves are doing well in spite of the challenging global economic environment. This latest reassurance comes from the Minister of Finance.
2012 has proven to be a good year for the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. This, according to Finance Minister, Senator the Honorable Larry Hawaii, while speaking at the post-cabinet news briefing on Thursday.
The total value of the fund at the end of last year was $4.7 billion US dollars. This is an increase of $628 million over the figure as at the end of the previous year. As you know, the fund is the growth in the fund is based on two factors. One is the transfers, which we make on an annual basis based on the price of oil and gas to the fund, as well as the earnings of the fund. With respect to the earnings of the fund, last year was a good year for the fund. The rate of return approximated 10.73%, which was an exceptionally good return given the low interest rates which prevail currently in the international markets.
The Honorable Minister says most of this growth was driven by the growth in the equity portfolio, which at the end of last year was valued at US $1.697 billion, up from US $1.251 billion the previous year. He says his ministry is in the process of reviewing the performance of the fund during the first half of 2013, and it is anticipated that the fund will close at the end of 2013 with more than US $5 billion. Minister Hawaii noted that the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is not included in the figure that is quoted as Trinidad and Tobago's foreign reserves, which currently stands at over US $9 billion.
The country's reserves remain strong and has continued on that track from the end of last year coming into this year, and remains a major source of the high ratings which the country currently enjoys. We expect that will continue as the price of oil and gas has remained above the projections which we had in the budget, which were a WTI price of $80, US $80 in the budget, and for that's for oil, and for gas a price of $2.75. The prices which have been earned this year has been above that figure.
Minister Hawaii says his ministry has completed a review of the fund, and proposed revisions to the management and operations of the fund would be taken to the Parliament. The HSF was established in March 2007 and was previously known as the Interim Revenue Stabilization Fund, established in 2000, the proceeds of which were transferred to the HSF. The objectives of the fund are to cushion the impact on or sustain public expenditure capacity during periods of revenue downturn, whether caused by a fall in prices of crude oil or natural gas, generate an alternative stream of income so as to support public expenditure capacity as a result of revenue downturn caused by the depletion of non-renewable petroleum resources, and provide a heritage for future generations of Trinidad and Tobago from savings and investment income derived from excess revenues. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
In other news, residents of Diego Martin now have much to be thankful for. The Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development has joined with the Toco Foundation to open the second of 2 outreach centers. A ceremony was held to commission the outreach center in their community.
Minister of Gender, Youth and Child Development, Marlene Kudre, says the occasion was also to celebrate the achievements of some of the young men in this community who have successfully completed their training in the Gatekeepers program. She says this engagement with the Toco Foundation is forged because the government understands the need to empower men and women, boys and girls, as part of their commitment to promoting and guiding citizens.
This project is an intervention model selected by the ministry to address the high level of youth involvement in criminal activity, especially males within the 17 to 29-year age group. And you would have heard all about the partnering and the reasons for the program. So that this ministry, Gender, Youth and Child Development, is now in its second year of operation, following the merging of 3 critical functions of gender, youth, and child development. Again, I have to cite my predecessor who is here today. She was the first minister, and we thank her, all of us at the ministry, thank her for guiding this ministry through its early stages.
She says the ministry is still striving to spread its wings with this success story and is even more confident than before that they will continue to report on success stories from the lives they have touched.
You heard things like spread wings, and these were the words that I took note: respect, sense of worthiness, being a part of a program, being proud of their achievements. They talk about collecting that they collectively did and collective efforts. They talk about creating, organizing, developing, promoting, and these are all their words. Community interaction. I heard the words beacon of hope, vision of a new beginning, community assisting. And based on all that, I sat there and I said, well, there's nothing more for me to say. And I think this was money well spent, having heard those words.
Noting one of the 7 pillars expressed by the government policy document, the minister says they are making human development a central thrust in nation building.
In terms of the selection of this district, from the 37 people killed 2.5 years prior to this program, when this program began, there was not one death recorded in this area. And I think hats off to you all.
Since the center has been opened, over 400 persons have toured the facilities. The minister says this is good for the community. The Gatekeepers program focuses on meeting the needs of young people who have the passion, energy and drive, but who lack the confidence, skills and opportunities. Minister Kudre says the young men who graduated from the program are examples of what happens when policies written by compassion and understanding. She says the future of Diego Martin community is in good hands. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
When we come back, the TTFF continues to transform positively. Stay with us. The Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation continues to transform itself into a more transparent and accountable national sporting body as recommended by the Minister of Sport. The latest addition to the team of President Raymond Timke is General Secretary Sheldon Phillips, and he tells Wayne Cunningham about his role in the transformation.
Sheldon Phillips is the newly appointed General Secretary of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation. Replacing the long-standing Richard Groden as President Raymond Timke continues to formulate his team to take football out of the doldrums. Mr. Phillips made his first official appearance as General Secretary at a media conference to announce the settlement of the 2006 Soca Warriors dispute, which he sees as crucial to going forward.
Well, I think it's a huge step forward in making a very bold statement and separating the Timke administration from previous administrations. We were saying very loud and clear that we're moving in a completely different direction. One of the things that I think will distinguish us is the way we deal with people and our embrace of good faith. If we make a promise, we're going to keep it. We're not going to, the whole era of over-promising and under-delivering is something of the past.
As the son of former national goalkeeper and technical director Lincoln Tiger Phillips, the new General Secretary comes from good footballing pedigree, and he easily sees what the settlement will do for local football.
This single event, our ability to establish a settlement with the 2006 Warriors is not only a righteous action and corrected a wrong that had taken place for far too long, but it really, allows us to, stand up, very tall and say we're a new group, where we have a new way of doing things, and we're now ready to engage with the corporate sector and the government and other stakeholders who have in the past been very open and willing to work with the team, but since the lawsuit had taken place, they were reluctant, reasonably so. So we think we have removed that major impediment, and then we're already starting to actually meet with some corporate stakeholders, potential corporate stakeholders, and from what I understand from Mr. Timke, the mood in the room and the response that we're getting is significantly different than what was felt before.
With a mixture of old and new officers on the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation executive, we asked if any hurdles are expected because of this mixture.
No, I mean we're really focused very keenly on moving forward, and our attitude, both President Timke and myself, and quite a few members of the board is those of you who want to get on board and on this train to move forward, come. But those who aren't inclined, the train's not going to stop. We are keenly aware of what has to be done, and very much interested in really kind of rolling up the sleeves in many aspects and doing whatever we need, whatever has to be done to really put us back to that level where we were at in 2006. So from what I've heard and seen so far, there's nothing to indicate that there are going to be any significant obstacles placed in our way from within. So to answer your question in short, no.
The contribution of the TT Pro League has been recognized by the General Secretary, and plans are in the making for new collaborations.
It's extremely important for the Federation to support the Pro League as in its mission to support our players. Many of which on our national team come from the Pro League. The club system is when you talk about development of football, a lot of people focus their attention on national teams, but in many ways it's the clubs that are responsible for the development, and they've been doing it for a long period of time, especially during this particular era when the Federation hadn't been able to fulfill those duties, or certainly not to the level that they would like to, the Federation would like to. So we look forward to continuing to work together with Mr. Skeen. The two of us have a very good relationship. We he was very supportive of an initiative that my father and I worked on last year in bringing down coaching staff from the Seattle Sounders and showcasing Pro League players, and we're looking to do an even bigger set of initiatives of a similar nature in the very near future.
Football seems to be moving forward. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us. Students and residents of St. Joseph came out in their numbers to remember a moment of our history, the naming of Trinidad and Tobago's first capital city, St. Joseph. Historian Professor Brinsley Samaru was present at the commemoration, and he did not hesitate at giving those gathered at what was once known as Plaza a lesson on this town's rich history.
One side by the beautiful view which they call Buena Vista. And then they call this lower area Urbanila. So today, what better purpose can we have than to proclaim this event and to celebrate the majesty of San Jose de Oruna?
A walk down history from historian Professor Dr. Brinsley Samaru, as he reminded those gathered for First Capital Day celebrations how St. Joseph became this country's first city. Originally named San Jose de Oruna, it served as the capital of Spanish Trinidad between 1592 and 1783 during Spain's colonial rule. Eventually, the name changed to its English version came after the British arrived. While First Capital Day celebrations commenced in 2004, the aim is to restore and remind the public of part of this country's rich history found in this once capital city. But as to why this town, situated in the middle of the northern region, was selected as the capital, according to Professor Samaru, the Spanish saw it fit because of its ease of access to the river and attributed this to the settling of Amerindians.
Because of the nearness of the St. Joseph River and the fact that it was very navigable from here on to the Caroni River and then to the sea. And between here and the Caroni River, there was a host of villages, Amerindian villages, dotting the place.
The handing over of reins to the British in 1797 saw the naming of streets within the then capital, and also became the birthplace to the signing of this country's first capitulation agreement.
In this very compound that we are standing today, that the first institutions of government were established in this nation. The Cabildo, which is the town council, the Casa Real, that is the governor's house that was on the hill there, the Iglesia, that is the church, the Carcel, that is the prison, the plaza, this plaza, which was the town square. And so this town functioned as the Spanish capital, as the first capital of Trinbago, from 1592 to 1784, when the capital is transferred to Puerto de España. So we have the change of the name of the town itself to St. Joseph, which the British understood more than San Jose. Street names named after British royalty: Frederick, Abercrombie, Albert, Market Street, Queen Street, Wellington Street, Piccadilly Street, Nelson Street, and so many of the others.
It's this change of cultural hands Professor Samaru attributes to the town's cosmopolitan mix.
So what is the result of this peaceful, historic interaction of peoples here in St. Joseph? St. Joseph has created a microcosm of all the races, religions, and cultures of the world here in this small geographical space. We don't have to go too far to talk about Parang and the Flores family. Who doesn't know about them? And they are the ones who popularized Parang in the country. There are so many steel bands, so many Indian orchestras portraying Indian music and dance. Here in this world, in one geographical space, you have all the cuisines, all kinds of food from all of the nations throughout the world centered here.
While no longer the capital city, the town has thrived as a town bustling with activity, situated between the now capital city of Port of Spain and the ever-busy Kirap and Tunapuna districts. Today, a number of landmarks continue to mark this town's historical value and stand as a reminder of what was once called the first capital city. Kimberly Ramkalawan, News 4.
And that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.